In my opinion, AD carry is one of the least fun positions in League of Legends. You can get through the rough early game and somehow manage to get some items and have some fun. But no matter how fat you are, as soon as the enemy has one of these on their team, you are going to be one-shot in a matter of seconds anyway. So despite being a Jhin OTP, I really hate playing this role in a normal game, and that's exactly why I thought it would be a great idea to rank every single AD carry from easiest to hardest based on their skill floor. Since there are a lot of champions that can be considered as ADCs, and I have no idea where to draw the line, I will just rank those which I have regularly encountered after 100 of ranked games on this position. And remember, this is just my personal opinion, and I'm always right, so let's start with the easiest champ on place 27. Well, the champion I consider as easiest to play is Misfortune, and that's not surprising at all, since this champion is literally made for beginners. The kit is so simple that even an 8-year-old suffering from a brain tumor is able to win games with it. You have a huge AoE slow, which is impossible to miss and lasts for 2 seconds. Your major damage source is a point-and-click bullet that turns into a chasing missile you can't escape when Misfortune manages to bounce it off a minion. Oh, and you gain some movement speed from the W passive, since somehow people on high heals walk faster than animals. And we haven't even talked about her ridiculous ultimate, which is just a "oh, you don't even have to aim, I will just deal a shit ton of damage inside this area" spell. You can change the outcome of a teamfight by just standing behind the tanks and pressing a single button. By far the easiest champ, no skill required. Well, if you really like running down enemies, you should consider playing this champ, since once the enemy realizes that he can't win the trade, he will start to run away. You just chase them for so long until they die, since every auto attack of this champion slows. A Q spell increases the attack speed, which equals more slow, and the W spell is basically you can't escape the slow. When he is standing further away, just make use of the big arrow to stun them for a few seconds, which is impossible to miss.
What?
Or just fire it on the guy standing right in front of you and make sure to collect the free kill. Additionally to that, she has her own blue ward which she can send across the map to spot the enemy jungler whenever needed, and can encourage some silver players to make use of the fucking minimap. Do you like playing games such as Farming Simulator?
I do.
Well, then I have the perfect champion for you. Sivir. The only thing this champion is capable of, clearing wave
After wave after wave.
until you have enough golden XP to fight the enemy by just auto-attacking them. The kit is also really simple, since it only consists of one boomerang, several boomerangs, and a spell shield that can save your life sometimes. But it can be hard to use this spell efficiently, timing on this spell is everything. That's all this champion has to offer, and is thus probably one of the most boring and easiest champion to play on the Rift. Seraphine really is an easy champion with a lot of utility in her kit, compared with other ADCs. She has a damage tool, can shield herself, and even has a CC spell. The range of these spells are ridiculous, but have the downside being slow and thus easy to dodge, unlike the ear cancer you get from hearing her voice all the time.
Looking for a song in everything I meet.
But even the slow spell problem can be fixed thanks to her passive that empowers your third spell, allowing her E spell to stun and making sure that all of her spells hit. And when that isn't already enough, she has an ultimate that can charm a whole team, turning them all into Swifties, following her into their certain death. Damn, I really need a private jet to get back to lane. This new Drake on the bot lane is really beginner friendly and also scales really well into the late game. I mean, the major damage spell is a point and click ability that deals AoE damage, and this dragon even has a spell that can get through minions and has a solid range. But the most powerful spell might be the fly away drive-by, which automatically kites for you since this dragon shoots while flying. This is really useful when you get ganked by an enemy or when you have to reposition in a fight. And the ultimate is just a huge fire beam that deals damage through a certain area and isn't really difficult to use. So overall, quite simple champion. Ziggs might sound like a difficult champion at first, since every ability is a skill shot you actually have to hit to deal some damage. Especially the Q bomb, which is your major damage spell, is not that easy to hit compared with an auto attack. Together with the minefield, it gives you the opportunity to harass the enemy standing inside or behind the minion wave thanks to its AoE damage. And furthermore, he has a really fast and easy wave clear that allows you to perma push the wave under the enemy tower and harass them even more. The only thing that might be hard to use is his W spell. That allows Ziggs to show an artistic jump and can also be used to prevent the enemy from touching him inappropriately. So such things as dying from enemy jungle ganks can be avoided since you can easily place the slowing minefield and just jump away with the W spell. And the ultimate is just a huge bomb Ziggs can throw on a certain area and deal a shit ton of damage, which can be really useful in a team fight, and it has a huge range combined with a massive impact area. But just like the other spells, you have to hit it to make a decent amount of damage, which is not that easy with the slow travel time. This one was not easy to rank at all, since I've already played a few more games with Jhin than with other AD carries. But just a few. Well, the reason I like this champion so much is due to the fact that he is so satisfying to play. There's nothing better than hitting someone with the 4th bounce of the grenade, smashing the 4th shot into their face and sniping them back to base with the W shot. The basic kit of Jhin is quite simple. For example, the grenade is a point and click spell, but in order to maximize its damage, you have to kill 3 minions with it. The W spell is only capable of stunning when the enemy got hit by any kind of damage from your team. But he has a great wave clear together with the traps and the grenade. During combat, the main damage comes from auto attacks, so it's quite simple when you have to fight with Jhin. The ultimate on the other hand requires a bit of skill to aim, since you still have to hit those and when you set up your sniper rifle, you are making yourself vulnerable by not being able to move, and everybody knows from where these shots are coming from. But overall, not a difficult champion. As an ADC, there's nothing more I hate than an invisible assassin that appears out of nowhere and one-shots your no resistance ass with just a simple mouse click. Well, if you can't beat them, just join them. Twitch is just the same kind of motherfucker that appears out of nowhere with the I was hiding bullshit and make you disappear with a single press of the E button. Although this sounds quite simple, you still have to get through the rough early game where he doesn't deal that much damage, and it's way harder to stack those poison stacks without the ultimate. But the basic combo of attacking out of nowhere, stacking up the poison with the bomb, and auto-attacking and finishing the combo off with the E spell is quite simple. The problem is you can't always execute it that easily, and once you have made use of that combo, the damage of this rat drops significantly, which can be a problem when you aren't capable of one-shotting them in one spell rotation. The ultimate on the other hand is quite simple, since it increases the range and damage of the rat's auto attack and can also shoot for minions, allowing Twitch to stack the passive stacks even faster and get rid of the enemy in one eye blink. The kiting part, however, is a different story and can take some time until it's perfectly mastered.
Number 12. Cock.
Ma. This bug looks absolutely disgusting, just like you. Just like his playstyle, which is basically running the opponent down. The only projectile you have to hit is the Q spell. Well, the E spell doesn't count, since it can get through minions and it's not that hard to hit and slows the opponent. This makes it especially easy to chase the opponent down, since the W spell is an ability that decreases Kog'Maw's auto attack range just like that and allows you to deal a lot of damage by auto attacking them. It is so easy that even the biggest idiot can't mess this one up. Just like the rat, Kog'Maw deals some great all-in damage, but when the W spell is over, you kinda lose some attack speed. But since it's not the major damage source, compared with the rat's E spell, this champion might be even easier. Even when you die, this bug transforms into a bomb that can walk and chase the opponent down to make it an even trade. So it is kinda forgiving for people that make a lot of mistakes. Just like me. You are also allowed to mess up the laning phase, since this champion scales so well. Late game, you only have to auto attack them with the crazy range and Kog'Maw can get rid of them. The only reason why I put this champion so high on this list is due to his weird ultimate. You are a champ completely relying on auto attacks and suddenly there's a Xerath W in your kit. I just kept forgetting to use this spell mid combat and it is a skill shot as well. and the problem is, I am not capable to hit those. Yet again a hyper carry, which are mostly placed low on this list because they can change the outcome of a match by just farming all game and demolish the enemy team when they have enough items. Also the laning phase with this champion is quite manageable, although the Jinx has more skill shots than the previous champions and is overall harder to play. The W spell can't get through minions, but the projectile flies quite fast, which makes it not that hard to hit. And the minigun changes into a rocket launcher, which might feel weird at first, but once you get used to it, you get used to it. It's a great tool for clearing the wave and let Jinx damage the enemy standing inside the minion wave. The hardest part is actually placing these traps correctly, since they take some time until they are able to CC the enemy. Hitting the ultimate can also be quite challenging, and you still have to hit it in the first place to deal some damage at all. Its main purpose is to execute the enemy, so you're also kinda forced to use the spell at the end of a fight. And therefore you have to get them low first. But when you have somehow managed to kill an enemy, Jinx gets into a state where she's on drugs and gets some additional movement and attack speed, which can stack up and makes it really easy to get rid of a whole team. At the same time, this is the reason why this champion can be broken late game and is thus ranked on such a low place. The higher we climb on this ladder, the harder the champion gets, and that's the reason why we have a champion on this place that is not that useful when he doesn't hit his kill shots. Every spell Varus has is about the arrow he fires that deals a bit more damage than an ordinary auto attack. But just a little bit. The damage increases the longer you pull on this bow, so most of the time you just stand there, charging the arrow and trying to hit an opponent. You can choose between low damage arrow, charging the bow along a high damage arrow, and activating the W spell to deal even more damage arrow. We have a slowing enemy arrow and tying the enemy up arrow that allows Varus to finally hit the stunned target. But in order to make super mega ultra high damage arrow, Varus has to auto attack the enemy to put some blight stacks on them, which can stack up to 3 times and deals a lot of damage when you hit the enemy with your arrow. Hitting the ultimate on them stacks it up to 3 right away. The kit overall is quite simple, but every spell revolves around the arrow, which means when you can't hit it, you are not going to win the game. By the previous champion, every spell was used to increase the damage of the arrow. Now the same thing can be applied on our next champion Tristana. This time, our major damage source is a bomb you can place on the enemy. Although it's a point and click spell and you can increase the detonation damage by just auto-attacking the enemy, I still find this champion harder to play than Varus. First of all, it is the risk you have to take as a champion that has to all in and is squishy at the same time. Tristana has the perfect tool to burst the enemy down, but it is quite hard to calculate her damage when you're not used to play with her. You have to stand close to an enemy as an AD carry, which is quite risky, but luckily you have a jump to get out of these sticky situations. A combo is simple, but the positioning is not that easy, and even when you get a reset on your jump after detonating the bomb, things can still go wrong, forcing you to have a kamikaze-like playstyle. You are basically jumping in, one-shotting one guy, and dying instantly right after. A strong early game champion with a shot that can get through minions, a dash and a double shot after every spell you cast makes this man quite easy to play and dominate the lane with. As long it's a 1v1, Lucian is not that hard to play, since when you hit every point and click spell with the double auto attack afterwards and the dash to run them down, this champion is not going to lose that fight. And it gets even more unlikely when you unlock the 3-minute laser show, where this carry is just shooting bullets into one direction. The problem is, as soon as this champion reaches the late game, the damage falls off and it gets harder since you don't have a lot of range. And compared with other champions like Tristana and Twitch, Lucian has a lack of burst damage. It's fine when you know what you are doing, but it's not that easy to dominate the late game with this champion. After all the hyper carries, we now somehow get the all-in champions. Kai'Sa basic abilities are quite simple. A Q spell that targets automatically the enemies nearby, the E spell with the mobility boost, and the missile which has a long travel distance but it's quite hard to hit. But the actual fighting part isn't that easy, since a lot of damage comes from proccing the passive thing, and it kinda feels weird to auto attack with her, since neither is it fast or deals a lot of damage. And she also lacks damage overall, even though her range isn't that big. But her ultimate is quite forgiving, since it doesn't punish his bad recalls that hard and provides you with a shield that lets you win close fights. But you have to time it right though, especially in late game team fights, it can be dangerous when you go in too early. That's why you have to make an assassin-like playstyle, where you ult into the backline and get the Q damage on the isolated enemy, and avoid a lot of damage with the evolved E spell that allows Kai'Sa to get invisible. But you can also use the ultimate as a spell to dodge enemy key abilities, or reposition yourself during combat. Ah yes, our favorite ADC we all love to see being played on the top lane. And that tumble and the knockback shot are just as annoying as on the top lane, but at least you are fighting now with a bit more honor, since Vayne is in a natural habitat. She is not hard at all, since the James Bond role can be used to dodge skill shots or as an engaged tool. But at the same time, the major damage output comes from auto-attacking the enemy 3 times. It's not that spectacular, but you have to be in auto-attack range all the time, with no significant ability that deals a lot of damage. The knockback spell is also difficult to use, especially when you want to pin someone against the wall with it. So later in teamfights, you have to be aware on how you position, since you have to stay in auto-attack range but don't have any game-changing abilities that could get you out of misery, or any high-range spells that allows you to attack from a safe distance. The only thing you have is an ultimate that makes your auto-attack stronger and allows you to roll more often than before. Oh, and it makes you invisible, so that's annoying for the enemy. After all the AD carries we had on this list, this is probably the one with the most different playstyle.
Bravo 6. Going dark.
Since Nilah has no range and wants to get into a close combat fight unlike the other carries. Since it's not a typical AD carry playstyle, it already takes some time until you get used to it. Since with the Diana-like ultimate and a huge amount of lifesteal, you are now forced to go into enemies instead of kiting back. You can compare Nilah with Samira, but unlike hers, Nilah's kit is a bit more forgiving. The W spell that let her block all auto attacks during an all-in, and the ultimate you don't have to build up with style points, makes it way easier to succeed than with other AD carries. And we haven't even talked about the additional EXP she gains through her passive, allowing her to reach the level 2 and level 6 power spike way before the enemy does. But it can be quite challenging once you get behind on Nilah, and when you can't manage a kit, you will have a tough time on the Rift. I promise. Well, some people might be surprised why Caitlyn has such a high spot on this list. A basic playstyle during the early game can be quite simple when you're just perma pushing the wave with the Q spell and keep farming tower plates. But when you want to maximize your damage by using some combos, this champion can be quite challenging. You have to know where to place traps or be able to place them really fast in order to stun them and hit the opponent with a headshot. Playing around the headshot can be difficult as well. And the additional damage you deal with the Q spell when the enemy hiding behind the enemy is stunned, and in fact you have to click on the enemy that is trapped in order to fire a headshot, but which makes it vulnerable because you have to stun them. And once Caitlyn is forced into a close combat fight, she is kinda doomed, since she wants to harass her opponent by outranging them, and she is really squishy. Also her level 6 power spike is quite weak compared with our AD carries because it's a quite obvious spell, but on the other hand, it also guarantees a hit. At first, I wasn't quite sure if I should add this champion to this list, but then I remembered how many times I had to lane against this thing in my ranked games, and I will never forget the pain seeing all my shots getting consumed by that wind wall. And people are still playing Malphite Yasuo comps, so fuck it. Playing Yasuo on the bot lane is a double-edged sword. Get it? Because he has a sword. First of all, he has a passive shield that simply protects him from damage, which can be really useful against huge damage spells. Then he has the wind wall that consumes all projectiles, which is especially annoying for champions that are only capable to deal damage with those projectiles. It can even make an entire ultimate useless. And last but not least, he has a dash ability that can be used as a gap closer and a really good and simple wave clear. Although this sounds really powerful, we all know how hard it can be to play a Yasuo properly. You can have a really tough time on the lane when you're not used to play Yasuo, and as long as the enemy isn't standing right next to you, it is quite hard to deal some damage. The stacked up Q tornado isn't that easy to hit, and as long as you aren't able to deal some damage with it, you can't knock the enemy up and perform your ultimate. Also the dashing around part and dealing some damage with auto attacks and Q spells can be quite difficult, and it needs to be done the right way. And since Yasuo stays squishy throughout the whole game, one wrong engage can be extremely punishing. And since there's a reason why the 0-10 power spike exists, we can safely say that this champion isn't easy at all and is quite difficult to master. We now have a champion that kinda plays similar like Nilah, but has a higher skill floor. Since the whole kit turns around the ultimate, which has to be built up with combo points, and when you mess it up, this champion is basically useless. These die points can only be built up when you damage an enemy with a different type of damage source than before. so you can't build it up by just auto-attacking them and thus forcing Samira to go in. She has a dash that can only be used on enemies and a W spell that works like a Yasuo wind wall and can save her from some hard CC spells that might interrupt the combo. Although the abilities are not that complicated, you have a tough time building up those die points, and when you mess up just one thing, Samira has to wait for her cooldowns since she can't increase the die points by just using the same damage source. But once you have managed to reach the S rank, Samira just have to press the R button and annihilate all living organisms in this certain area, which can be really powerful in teamfights, but since you are still a squishy AD carry, Samira can't engage too early or she will be deleted in a few seconds. But on the other hand, you don't want to go in too late or you will be useless. It is really hard to find the right time to go in and build up those die points. The downside of this champion is, I have no idea what he does. The positive part is, neither does the enemy. After swapping my smite with flash in the last second, copying the 47% win rate build from the internet, I spent the first 5 minutes reading all his abilities.
Hello there.
And I still wasn't finished, but hey, at least I didn't get hooked during the invade. You motherfucker. Well, at least now I had some time to look at my abilities, and holy shit was a surprise when I realized that I can't put a skill point into any of these abilities and now I'm stuck with this weird icon giving me 3 options. Since I don't have a clue what to do, I just randomly pressed the button and went to the lane to get some CS. One of these unique things this champion has to offer are these 4 weapons giving you a different kind of experience while playing him. Though honestly this was just a pain in the ass, since you can't choose which of these weapons are currently equipped. And since Vanguard leaks so realistic and provides all of them with an expire date, which forces you to change your weapon after 50 shots, forcing you to change your playstyle mid-game every 4 minutes, while you don't know how to handle them since you can somehow change those by pressing W, and do some weird combos with them, which feels like landing an airplane for the first time. And after 10 minutes, the only thing I've managed to kill was this ward. A few more minutes and gold later, and I was able to collect some kills with button smashing and literally throwing a moon on them while my weapons were doing some other bullshit. Really difficult champion, wouldn't recommend the first time it in ranked, but despite all these things, Aphelios might be manageable when you know how to play him. We are now getting into the top 5 most difficult AD carries to play and start with the 5th place, which is claimed by Zaya. Her whole kit turns around the feather she places on the ground when the Q ability was used, but when she uses an ability, it provides her with 3 feathers she can place on the ground after an auto attack, which is limited by 5. That's all good and not that difficult, but her most important spell is her E ability, which recalls all feathers that have been placed on the ground back to Zaya and deal damage towards everything they go through, and even stunning those who get hit by 3 or more of them. And since this champion has a weak early game, you really want to make sure to hit those boomerang feathers, and that's the reason why you have to place them properly before recalling them. And that's the difficult part playing this champion, knowing if these feathers are going to hit the enemy or not, and placing them that way that these things can be used properly. During the late game, this champion can get really strong and even gain access to a powerful ultimate, which allows her to dodge huge damage spells like Malphite ultimates and save her own ass. In late game it gets a bit easier in general, and auto-attacking a lot of things from the backline with the W spell, and being hard to kill thanks to the ability that can negate a lot of damage. This one was hard to rank, since on paper Ezreal is a quite simple champion. Just hit all abilities to be effective. A skill shot that deals damage, a ring that deals even more damage when you manage to hit the enemy, a dash, a skill shot with infinite range that deals even more damage. As you can see, a really straightforward kit. The difficult part is, as already mentioned, you have to hit all those things in order to be useful. And that's not easy, since the Q spell, which is Ezreal's major damage source, can't get through minions, making it extremely hard to put out some damage when the enemy knows how to play against this champion. Additionally to that, Ezreal won't get provided with 1.5 second cooldown reduction on all abilities. And just like the Q spell, the other abilities also have to land in order to not be completely useless. Basic combo, which would be the W spell into the Q shot, requires you to hit 2 skill shots in a row, which is nearly impossible for me to pull off. The dash can be a powerful tool that can be used to dodge skill shots or as a gap closer, but it also gives you the risk to go too deep into enemy territory, which most likely ends with a death. The Q spell has a low cooldown and nearly no mana costs, allowing you to spam the spell and maybe hit some shots with pure luck. The basic concept of this champion is quite simple, but it has a really high skill ceiling, making it a really difficult champion to master. You know it's going to be stressful when you have to click twice after every auto attack. The first click on the minion you are going to hit, and the second one into the direction you want this champion to jump. This can be avoided when you change your settings to auto attack moving and target champions only. It's not surprising that no one wants to play with this jumping jackass that has to hit an enemy 10,000 times before it makes use of the pull-out spell and deal an additional amount of damage. You are literally playing the fishing minigame in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, only that this one is way more frustrating. Kalista has to throw as many spears as she can into the enemy, which doesn't deal that much damage. It only hurts when she makes use of the E spell, which pulls them out and unleashes her full damage potential. But how the hell am I supposed to know if there are already enough spears inside the enemy body that I can kill them instantly? The Q spell is just a long range spear, and the W spell is just a personal spotting drone you can send across the river and provide Kalista with some vision. But since I rarely watch the minimap, this spell is completely useless. Even the ultimate has a huge throw potential when not used correctly. Kalista makes the ally she is already bound to untargetable and can throw her into a direction wherever she wants to. You can throw them away or right into the enemy, and the best thing is, your teammate can't do anything about it. So sometimes you might accidentally cancel an ability just to throw him few seconds later into the enemy team as a bait. Well, with this champion Riot Games had a really great idea. Let's switch the Q spell and the auto attack. So now you're forced to spam Q on your keyboard every second just to get some farm, and you can't just click the minion to kill them. Well, you can, but it's a special shot that should be used on the enemy since it takes ages until it's fully charged again. Although this new auto attack has the benefit that you can hit the enemy inside the bush even without having vision on him. But you can't just auto attack him anymore when he is standing inside the minion wave. So you are stuck with an auto attack you actually have to hit. The W spell is also a pain in the ass, a skill shot that fires really slow and can't get through minions. Except you cast it behind the terrain, which is extremely obvious since they can already see you walking behind that wall, casting that spell that gives you 5 minutes time to dodge it. The E spell is maybe the easiest spell on her since it allows you to dash or travel through terrain, but even this has a huge throw potential when you dash right into the enemy. The ultimate is also quite simple since it's just a blitzcrank ultimate, but it also increases a lot of stats. So after using it, you have to play good again by kiting properly with the stupid auto attack Q spell, making this champion quite challenging. And now the moment we have all been waiting for. The hardest champion on the AD carry role is Draven. No, seriously, this champion is hard as fuck. Especially one specific spell, which is the most important thing when you want to be good with Draven, the spinning axis. After every auto attack, you have to catch these things again, and since they reveal the place where they are going to land, it's quite obvious for the enemy where you are going next, turning Draven into a target that is easy to hook. And do you even know how stressful it is to focus on damaging the enemy while you are farming and dodging skill shots, and at the same time you have to catch your axis? It is just ridiculously difficult, and it takes a lot of time until you get used to it. The other spell in the kit are just add-ons, a speed buff spell and a knockback spell. Even the ultimate isn't that hard, since it's a bit like an S3 ultimate, but you can even call it back for a second hit. But the major damage output comes from auto attacks with the flying axis, and since your passive gives you a lot of gold after making kills, Draven can really snowball hard and carry the whole team. Oh shit, I dropped one axe. Alright, that's it. We have now officially ranked all AD carries in this game from easiest to hardest, and I'm curious if you guys generally agree with this list. Now we have a great overview which champion you could first time in your next ranked game, and which you shouldn't touch at all unless you want to get a seizure while playing this game.